Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada was a Spanish explorer and conquistador in northern South America, territories currently known as Colombia. He explored the northern part of South America. As a well-educated lawyer, he was one of the few intellectuals of the Spanish conquest. He was an effective organizer and leader, designed the first legislation for the government of the area, and was its historian. After 1569, he undertook explorations toward the east, searching for the elusive Eldorado, but returned to New Granada in 1573. He has been suggested as a possible model for Cervantes' Don Quixote family. His father, Luis Jiménez de Quesada, was a hidalgo relative of Gonzalo Francisco de Córdoba, and he had two well-known distant cousins, the conquistadors of Mexico and Peru respectively, Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro. Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada was born in Córdoba, or in Granada, Spain, into a Marrano family which had converted to Catholicism before he was born. He had three younger brothers, Hernán and Francisco, who also were conquistadors, a Melchor, and a sister, Andrea. Conquest of the Muisca Confederation. De Quesada was an Andalusian lawyer, trained in Granada. He was appointed chief magistrate in 1535, and second in command for an expedition to present-day Colombia, because in that period he wasn't in good standing with the people at home because he had just lost an important court case in which his mother's family was economically involved. The commander of the expedition, Pedro Fernández de Lugo, had bought the governorship of Colombia and had equipped a fleet and assembled over 1,000 men, and so they set sail to Colombia, thinking they would find a very rich land, full of gold and pearls. But when, after 2 months of navigation, they reached the small coastal settlement of Santa Marta, all they found was a conglomeration of hovels and filthy, disease-ridden colonists who went about dressed in skins or roughly woven and padded cotton clothes made by the Indians. Soon food became scarce and tropical fevers began to smite down the strongest. In 1536, de Quesada was chosen by de Lugo to command an expedition without any military experience to explore into the interior of New Granada, hoping to discover the dreamed Eldorado. A land party under de Quesada, with Hernán Pérez de Quesada, Juan San Martin, Juan del Junco, Lázaro Fonte and Sergio Bustillo, struck south from Santa Marta, crossed the Cesar River, and arrived at Tamaulipas on the Magdalena River. A support fleet of 6 ships had also sailed from Santa Marta with 900 men to navigate the Magdalena. Only 2 of the vessels actually arrived at Tamaulipas, and subsequently returned to Santa Marta with many of de Quesada's men. Continuing up the Magdalena as far as La Torre, de Quesada and his men ascended the Opone River into the Cordillera, reaching the Opone Hills, Chapata and the valley of the Suarez River. Passing Lake Fucna and Lake Suscar, they reached Nemocan and Zipaquira and finally entered the Muisca Confederation. Only 166 men out of 900 survived, suffering terribly in the jungle. They were forced to eat snakes, lizards, frogs, and even the leather torn from the harnesses and the scabbards of the swords. In Bogota, Quesada resigned and called for an election. He was elected Captain General and threw off the last link that held him to the governor. The Muisca had 2 rulers. The Zapatisca ruled in Bogota, the other, the Zacuaymunchatocha, ruled in Tuna. Taking advantage of a war between the 2 chiefdoms, Quesada's force subdued Bogota and then successfully attacked Tuna. At this point it was time to establish a colony so that the earth itself might properly belong to de Quesada and his men. They chose a spot next to the towering peaks of the east where the land was high and the rains would quickly run off, where the mountains would protect them from attackers and the jungles below. Quesada Quesada placed his right foot on the bare earth and said simply, "I take possession of this land in the name of the most sovereign Emperor, Charles V." The settlement was at first called New City of Granada, but later they changed it to Santa Fe de Bogota, now known simply as Bogota. For the Chibcha word Bacata, the name of one of the two main cacicazgos of the Muisca Confederation, Quesada remained in the region until the arrival of two expeditions at the end of 1538. Sebastian de Belalcazar from Quito, Ecuador, one of the captains of Pizarro who had mutinied against his leader, and Nicolaus Federman, a German from Venezuela who had rebelled against another German named Hohermuth. The three captains met on the savannah of New Granada. All three wanted to claim New Granada for themselves. In order to resolve the dispute, de Quesada persuaded them to go back to Spain with him and to submit the rival territorial claims to the arbitration of the Crown. In July 1539, they sailed for Spain from Cartagena. However, none of them obtained the governorship. De Quesada, after nearly a dozen years of wandering disconsolately through the gaming halls of Europe, returned to New Granada in 1550. Here, he settled down to live for nearly 20 years. He was a respected colonist, becoming the most influential man in the colony. He protected his fellow colonists from the severity of the officials and restrained the encomenderos greed, but his own desire for wealth and gold continued to live inside him. Later expeditions. In 1569, at the age of 63, de Quesada received a commission to conquer the Llanos to the east of the Colombian Cordillera, from Bogota in April 1569 with 500 mounted soldiers, 1,500 natives, 1,100 horses and pack animals, 600 head of cattle, 800 pigs, a large number of Negro slaves and 8 priests. He first descended to Macetas on the upper Gaya River. There most of the livestock was destroyed by a grass fire. De Quesada's expedition then moved to nearby San Juan de los Llanos, where a course was set for east-southeast, and maintained for the following 2 years. After a year some men returned with Juan Maldonado, reaching San Juan after 6 months with few survivors. De Quesada eventually reached Atabapo at the confluence of the Guaviare and the Orinoco, any further movement requiring the construction of ships. He therefore dejectedly returned to Bogota, arriving in December 1572 with only 25 Spaniards, 4 natives, 18 horses and 2 priests. The expedition had been one of the most expensive disasters on record. After a brief period of service in a frontier command, de Quesada, afflicted with leprosy, overcome with despair at his debts, owing more than 60,000 ducats, was forced to seek a milder climate and died quietly, aged 72, in Muisca, a town in the New Kingdom of Granada. Death and legacy. After his death in Muisca, de Quesada's body was taken to Mariquita, where he was buried in the Santa Lucia Abbey. His remains were there until 1597, when they were exhumed and transferred to Bogota, the city founded by him. Named after Jimenez de Quesada, Avenida Jimenez, important avenue in Bogota. Torres Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada, 5 towers with residences in Bogota. Bibliography. Cunningham Graham, R.B. 1922. The Conquest of New Granada, being the life of Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada. W. Heinemann.